Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
Today, we've got quite a stack of source material. It seems to cover, well, rapid upheaval just about everywhere you look.
Yeah, a lot going on.
We're going to try and guide you through this global turbulence. We're talking everything from, like, the basic integrity of science publishing to big geopolitical security fears, deep political divides, and even some incredible personal struggles. Health, safety. It's a lot.
It really is. And the mission, I think, is to connect these dots. There's this shared theme, this idea of intense simultaneous pressure.
Agree on what exactly?
Well, on global structures, right? Academic systems, governments, the environment, but also on individual lives, all feeling the strain all at the same time.
Okay, so our job is to unpack not just the facts, but maybe how these bigger systemic things and these very personal things, how they interact.
Precisely.
So what's on the docket? We'll hit the AI threat in academia, the refugee crisis in Pakistan, security issues, that strange incident with gender violence politics in Mexico.
Right.
And then, yeah, how people cope when they feel like they're losing their sense of self.
It's a wide range.
Let's dive in. And maybe the best place to start is where knowledge itself begins, right? The integrity of our information systems. Okay, first up, arXiv. Now, for anyone not familiar, this is like the oldest and biggest preprint server, mostly physics, math, computer science. People share work there before it's formally peer-reviewed.
Yeah, it's a cornerstone for a lot of fields, and they've just made a really significant move, particularly in computer science.
What did they do?
They've essentially banned review papers or position papers unless they've already been peer-reviewed elsewhere.
Wow, that seems drastic for a preprint server. Why?
Well, it seems to be a response to, frankly, a flood of low-quality submissions, a lot of derivative stuff, and, the elephant in the room is generative AI tools being used to churn this out.
Just junk content, basically.
Pretty much. And it's starting to threaten the reputation of arXiv itself. They had to do something.
Do we know how bad it got, like numbers-wise?
Yeah, the figures are quite stark, actually. Our 6 executive director said that for years, the rejection rate by moderators was tiny, like 2 or 3%.
Okay, that sounds normal.
Right. But in the last year, it's shot up to 10%.
10%? That's a huge jump.
It is. Imagine the workload on the human moderators just trying to sift through it all. It raises a big question, though.
Which is?
Is this kind of structural ban, just rejecting whole categories of papers, is that the right way to defend quality? Or does it risk, shutting out potentially valuable early-stage work that maybe hasn't found a journal yet?
Yeah, that's the tension, isn't it? Filtering the noise versus potentially stifling discovery.
Exactly. And we see similar things elsewhere, like BIARs and MedRACs for biomedical stuff. They've always had a no narrative reviews policy. They want just the raw, new data.
So this struggle over what's trustworthy, what belongs,
yeah,
it's happening everywhere.
It really is. And this whole mess, this information pollution, it doesn't just stay at the system level. It affects individual researchers deeply. Well, look at this Elsevier report, the Researcher of the Future one. They surveyed, 3,200 researchers globally?
Right.
And the pressure they're under is just immense.
The numbers are pretty brutal. 68%, over 2/3, feel more pressure to publish now than just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, publish or perish cranked up to 11.
But then you ask them, do you have enough time for actual research? And only 45% say yes.
So where's the squeeze coming from?
It's the usual suspects, but worse. Admin burdens, teaching loads, and the endless chase for funding.
Funding. That seems particularly bad in some places.
Definitely. In North America, only 11% of researchers expect their funding to grow. That lines up with those U.S. research budget cuts we've been hearing about.
And this isn't just, an inconvenience. It's actually driving people to consider leaving. It's creating a potential brain drain.
Yeah, the report calls it a global mobility crisis. Nearly 30% of researchers worldwide are thinking about moving countries. Yeah.
30%. That's huge. But the really fascinating part is where they might go or where they might leave from. The politics seem to be playing a massive role.
How do you mean?
Look at the U.S. versus China. In the U.S., 40% of researchers say they're likely to relocate. That figure is up 16 points since just 2022.
Wow, 40%. That's alarming.
It is. Now, compare that to China. Only 13% there are likely to move, and that number is down 22 points.
So fewer researchers leaving China, many more thinking of leaving the U.S.
Exactly. And the sources directly connect this to the political climate. They mention, perceived hostility towards scientists in the U.S. government versus China actively making its research environment very attractive, trying to lure scientists back or keep them there.
So the long-term implication for you, the listener, is pretty profound here. We could be seeing a really fast fundamental shift in where the world's scientific power sits, moving away from traditional Western hubs.
It certainly looks that way. #tag2, political and humanitarian fault lines.
Okay, so we've seen academic systems under strain from AI, from political pressures. Where does that pressure go next? Often it hits borders. It hits human rights.
Let's turn to Pakistan. There's a tragic situation unfolding with Afghan refugees. It's escalating quickly.
What's the trigger?
There were intense border clashes with the Taliban recently, and following that, Pakistan really ramped up its campaign to expel undocumented Afghans. They just announced they're closing all 54 established Afghan refugee villages across the country.
54 villages. That's huge.
And sudden.
Incredibly sudden, and the human cost is just devastating. Think about someone like Zara. She's 42. Her parents fled the Soviet war back in '79. She was born in a refugee village in Quetta, grew up there.
So Pakistan is the only home she's ever known.
Exactly. She literally knows no one in Afghanistan, but she's being forced out.
And there are others, like Abdul Rahman, 44, a fruit seller.
Yeah.
His kids are in Pakistani schools. They speak Urdu. They're integrated. And he's apparently demolishing his own house right now, trying to salvage the bricks to take with him because he has absolutely no idea what kind of shelter, if any, awaits him on the other side.
It's brutal. What are the competing narratives here?
Well, you've got the Pakistani government framing it as a security issue, right? Especially after those border clashes. They're labeling undocumented Afghans a risk.
Okay.
But then you have the UN human rights groups. They're sounding the alarm about the harshness, the suddenness. They're deeply concerned about forcing people, especially women and girls, back to Afghanistan under the Taliban.
Where their rights to education, to work, are basically gone.
Precisely. It guarantees more insecurity, not less. It's just a horrible cycle of conflict leading to displacement, leading potentially back into conflict or oppression.
A devastating cycle indeed. Let's shift gears, but stay with political conflict, intersecting with gender this time. Mexico.
Yes, the incident involving President Claudia Sheinbaum.
Right. She was groped by a drunk man on the street, and she used that personal experience pretty powerfully to launch a policy push. She started pressing states to actually criminalize sexual harassment, urging women to report these crimes.
You'd think that would be seen as leadership, right? Using your platform.
You would think. But Mexico's political environment is apparently so toxic, so polarized. Opponents immediately jumped on it, accused her of using the assault as a political distraction.
A distraction from what?
From other issues, like the recent killing of a mayor in Michoacan, the ongoing political violence. Basically saying she's trying to change the subject.
That's cynical, but maybe standard political mudslinging.
Went further than that. Some opponents actually suggested the assault might have been staged.
Staged? Seriously?
Yeah, staged to shift the national conversation.
Wow, that's quite something.
But here's the crucial insight from an NGO director working on gender violence. She pointed out that this whole reaction, the immediate doubt, the public shaming, the staged accusations, it's actually a perfect, high-profile illustration of what ordinary women face all the time.
How so?
When women report assaults, they were routinely disbelieved, disparaged, their motives questioned by authorities, by society. It doesn't matter if you're the president or anyone else. The system itself seems geared to re-victimize and distrust the person reporting.
So the reaction to Sheinbaum wasn't an anomaly, it was an example of the norm just playing out on a bigger stage.
Exactly. A pretty chilling example of systemic distrust. #tag3, global security and environmental risk.
And that kind of political distrust, that cynicism, it easily bleeds over into questions of, physical security, critical infrastructure.
Makes sense. Where are we looking now?
Belgium, they've had a series of pretty concerning security incidents lately involving drones.
Drones. What happened?
Multiple sightings forced flight suspensions.
Yeah.
Not just anywhere, but at Liege, that's a huge European cargo hub, and also at Brussels, the main international airport. It didn't seem random. It felt organized.
Okay, that's disruptive. But is there more to it?
Well, yes. The drones weren't just at airports. They were also spotted near the Kleinbrogel military base.
And what's significant about that base?
It's widely confirmed that U.S. nuclear weapons are stored there.
Ah, right. So drones near nukes. That's definitely not amateur hour.
Exactly. The Belgian defense minister was quite blunt about it, called it a possible spying operation, and explicitly said it wasn't the work of hobbyists.
Is there a theory about who might be behind it? The geopolitical context seems important here.
It does seem important. Belgium is home to Euroclear, the big financial clearinghouse, and Euroclear holds enormous amounts of frozen Russian assets. And right now, Belgium is actually resisting some EU pressure to use those frozen assets as collateral for loans to Ukraine. Their prime minister has even warned publicly about potential Russian retaliation for freezing the assets in the first place.
So the drones could be a message, a probe, linked to the frozen assets standoff.
It certainly fits the context. It highlights how vulnerable critical infrastructure becomes when a nation gets caught in these high-stakes geopolitical games.
From security vulnerability to environmental vulnerability. Let's shift to Malawi.
Yes, one of the world's poorest nations. And facing a really severe food crisis. We're talking about 4 million people facing acute food insecurity.
4 million. That's a huge portion of their population. And it's not short term.
No, experts are worried this could drag on until March 2026.
What's driving it? Just climate change. Droughts, cyclones.
Well, those are definitely factors. Climate shocks are hitting them hard. Drought cyclones, yes. But it's layered on top of really deep structural problems.
Such as?
Heavy dependence on maize, for one. Almost total reliance on rain-fed agriculture, very little irrigation coverage, and just a fundamentally weak market system for food.
Okay, weak market system. How does that play out? There's a weird paradox mentioned.
Yeah.
Right.
This really shows how broken mechanics can cause tragedy. The problem is actually made worse because farmers often export their maize to neighboring countries.
Why would they do that if there's a shortage at home?
Because they get higher prices. The National Food Reserve Agency in Malawi, the main domestic buyer, apparently doesn't offer competitive prices compared to what they can get exporting it.
So the government agency is being outbid by foreign markets for its own staple crop.
Essentially, yes. It creates this perverse incentive where farmers are rewarded for sending food out of the country, even during a domestic crisis. It creates an artificial shortage and drives up local prices even further.
That's deeply dysfunctional.
It really is. And it underlines the point that just sending external aid is like putting a bandage on a gaping wound. It doesn't fix the underlying structure.
So the real need is structural change. Moving away from just maize, investing in irrigation, fixing the market, building reliable national safety nets.
Exactly. Sustainable solutions, not just perpetual crisis management.
Okay, one more systemic issue. Climate action. Specifically, the weird disconnect happening in the U.S.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast. You've got the federal level, the Trump administration basically skipping COP30, the big global climate conference.
Yeah.
No high-level representatives being sent.
Right, sending a pretty clear signal there.
But then you look at the subnational level, states, cities, and it's a completely different story.
What's happening there?
Over 100 U.S. state and local leaders are actually going to COP30.
Yeah.
Governors, mayors. This group represents something like 2/3 of the U.S. population and 75% of the U.S. GDP.
So a massive part of the U.S. economy and population is still engaging, even if the White House isn't.
Precisely. It shows climate action is being pushed really hard from the bottom up, almost irrespective of federal policy at the moment.
And we see weird policy mixes because of this, right? Like New Mexico.
Yeah, Governor Lujan Grisham talks about an all-of-the-above approach. So they're increasing oil and gas production.
Okay.
But at the same time, they're claiming they've cut methane output in half. It's trying to walk a fine line.
Meanwhile, you have activists pushing for much more aggressive policies.
Definitely. They want true climate justice-aligned policy. You see that reflected in things like the mayoral win in New York City by Zoran Mamdani, an eco-socialist who's explicitly backing a phase-out of fossil fuels.
But it just highlights this deep fracture, this lack of a unified approach within the U.S. itself.
A major fracture. #ForcyGuy, personal vulnerability and identity.
Okay, we've talked about huge systems, fracturing information, borders, security, climate. Where does that leave the individual? Often feeling incredibly vulnerable.
That's right. And sometimes that vulnerability stems from very specific, even brief encounters. Let's talk about Nadia's story.
Yeah, this one is chilling. Her life was, in her words, destroyed for years by a single 20-minute interaction.
20 minutes. It's hard to fathom. She met someone on a dating app.
Went to his place. What were the red flags she mentioned?
Little things at first. The flat was bare, unfurnished, TV just sitting on boxes. Then the atmosphere changed quickly when she said no to alcohol.
Okay, unsettling.
Yeah.
But then it escalated?
Dramatically, she accidentally spilled a Diet Coke. And his reaction was instant, aggressive verbal assault.
What did he say? The quote was really specific.
He told her, You're so clumsy you don't respect my property. You're a clown.
You're a clown. Wow. That language.
Yeah.
It's not about this spilled drink, is it?
Not at all. It's about stripping her agency, her self-worth immediately, asserting power through humiliation. Pure psychological attack.
And the impact was devastating and long-lasting, she said, just from that 20-minute encounter.
It shows how quickly our sense of safety, our self-respect can be shattered, and the trauma can linger for years.
We see a different kind of violation, maybe more internal, discussed in the context of perimenopause. This feeling of losing your identity.
Yes, that feeling of being robbed. Journalist Emma Barnett used that exact word. She even wished there was, like, an emergency number she could call.
To report a crime?
Yeah, to report a crime. Someone stole me.
Someone stole me. That really captures that sense of profound loss, doesn't it? Betrayal by your own body, almost.
It does. And her guest on that show, Kate Thornton, she described it very concretely, going from being, very capable, juggling lots of things professionally,
Wow.
to suddenly feeling entirely incapable, overwhelmed by the physical and emotional changes.
That shift from capable to feeling incapable, from knowing who you are to feeling like a stranger in your own skin. That seems like the ultimate personal vulnerability.
It really is. When you lose that core sense of self, that foundation, how do you even face all those external systemic pressures we've been talking about? It takes away your base. Hashtag outtag outro.
So we've really covered a lot of ground today. Deep water, as you said earlier.
We have. From, AI messing with academic truth to real-world security scares in Europe, systemic hunger in Malawi driven by broken markets.
Right, and those deeply personal fights against trauma, against feeling like you've lost yourself. It feels like every layer is under stress.
Maximum duress, everywhere, all at once.
Is there a common thread running through all of this?
I think it's a constant tension. The tension between these huge, often impersonal, external pressures and individual agency. The struggle to assert oneself.
Yeah, you see it with the arXiv moderators trying to uphold standards.
You see with the Afghan families just trying to belong somewhere.
With President Scheinbaum fighting for the right to report a crime without being attacked for it.
And with women like Nadia or those experiencing perimenopause, fighting to reclaim their sense of self, their capability after illness or assault.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We've seen the places we count on for reliable information academia, the news they're under attack, they're polarized. Our systems for safety, for managing global crises, seem to be fracturing.
So if everything is fracturing simultaneously, how we know things, how we stay safe, how we manage the planet, what's the single most crucial skill? What does the modern learner, the modern citizen, need most to navigate all this? To sort truth from noise and find a secure footing for the future?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Until our next deep dive.